Before diving into this incredible story, remember to subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Here, every story has something to say, and you won't want to miss a single one. Elisa was only 19, a fragile beauty whose life was already marked by poverty and lost illusions. Her friends saw her as a dreamer, but behind her gentle gaze hid a constant fear, that of never escaping misery. It was in a luxurious tea room in the city center that she met Victor Delambre, a 75-year-old, extremely wealthy retired entrepreneur, known for his refined manners, and his well-kept secrets. His deep voice, piercing gaze, and icy calm were as fascinating as they were unsettling. Victor often spoke to her of his loneliness, his immense house atop a hill, and the void left by his wife's death. Little by little, he managed to touch Elisa's heartstrings. He promised her a future, a comfort, a life of luxury she could never have imagined. And above all, a colossal inheritance, should he ever pass away. At first, she convinced herself that it was all just an arrangement. That she could put up with his age, his quirks, his unsettling silences, in exchange for stability. But as soon as she set foot in the Delambre manor, the atmosphere changed. The corridors seemed to weep, the portraits followed her with their gaze, and every night she heard whispers through the walls. Victor, meanwhile, was becoming increasingly strange. His gentle tone sometimes turned into cold commands, his eyes lit up with an almost demonic gleam. One evening, as she was quietly going downstairs, Elisa heard Victor talking to himself in the library. His trembling voice seemed to be pleading with someone, or something. "You promised me another 10 years. 10 years, no less." Yet there was no one in the room. This was the first time Elisa understood that she had not only sold her soul to a rich old man. She may have given it to something far worse. The taxi stopped at the foot of a long avenue lined with cypress trees. Through the fogged window, Elisa glimpsed the silhouette of the Delambre mansion, immense, dark, almost swallowed by the late afternoon fog. She felt a shiver run down her spine. The driver, an old man with trembling hands, refused to go any higher. "I'll leave you here, miss. They say that up there, souls never sleep." He murmured before starting up again, without even waiting for his tip. Elisa remained alone, her suitcase in hand, her heart pounding. Each step echoed on the cobblestones like a warning. At the main gate, a butler with an impassive face greeted her. "Miss Elisa? Mr. Delambre is waiting for you in the main living room." As soon as she crossed the threshold, the air became heavier. The walls seemed to ooze dampness, and the paintings adorning the corridor gave the impression of watching her. Faces of pale women, all young, all strangely alike. Victor Delambre finally appeared. Black suit, sculpted cane, steely gaze. "Here you are, my dear Elisa. Welcome home." His deep voice made the air vibrate. He took her hand, squeezing it a little too tightly. She felt the coldness of his skin against hers. The dinner was silent, almost ceremonial. Victor spoke little, but when he did, each word seemed carefully chosen. He spoke of his childhood in this house, the mysterious death of his wife, and the legacy he wanted to leave to Elisa. "I want you to be safe here. You will soon be the mistress of this estate." These words should have reassured her. Yet, something was wrong. In the candlelight, she thought she saw Victor's shadow move while he remained perfectly still. After the meal, the butler led her to her room on the second floor. The room was sumptuous, but icy cold. On the wall, a large portrait immediately caught her eye, that of a young woman dressed in an antique gown, the same face as Elisa. The resemblance was striking, almost perfect. At the bottom of the painting, a copper plaque bore an inscription. Elise Delambre, 1892–1911. Elisa felt her breath catch. "That's impossible," she murmured. That night, it was impossible to sleep. The wind howled through the windows, and around midnight, a faint creaking sound could be heard, the sound of a door being slowly opened. Then, a low, barely audible voice rose from the hallway. "Elise, you're back." Elisa jumped up, frozen with fear. The door handle turned slowly, but she didn't dare move. and through the half-open door, a slender figure appeared. It wasn't Victor. It was a woman in a white dress, her face half obscured by shadow, and yet, it was her own face. Elisa froze, breathless. The figure in the half-open door seemed to float rather than walk. A white dress with worn edges, a waxy complexion, and that face, her own face, pale, lifeless. A chilly breath filled the room. The candlestick on the table trembled, and the flame flickered. "Elise, why did you come back?" The voice resonated, soft but broken, like an echo from another time. Elisa wanted to speak, but no sound came out. When she blinked, the figure had disappeared. Only the door slowly closed by itself with an endless creaking sound. In the morning, she initially thought she had dreamt it. But on the floor, right in front of the door, a wet imprint of bare feet proved otherwise. At breakfast, Victor was already sitting motionless, his coffee in his hand. "Did you sleep well, my dear?" he asked, with an almost forced smile at the corner of his lips. "I thought I saw someone in my room." "Oh," he replied calmly, "the manor has its own memory. Sometimes, it remembers what it has lost." Elisa shivered. Victor immediately changed his tone, becoming charming again, almost paternal. He offered her a tour of the estate. The house seemed endless, corridors with dusty tapestries, locked doors, family portraits that all looked alike. But it was in the library that Elisa felt the strongest presence. A vast room, where the air smelled of old paper and secrets. On a desk, a large open book, yellowed with age, caught his eye. It was a family register. The names Delambre they were featured there across several generations. But when she turned the page, she felt her heart stop. Under the date 1911, one could read: Elise Delambre, wife of Victor Delambre, died at 19 years old. The same year, the same appearance. And just below, written in a trembling hand: "She will always come back, as long as he looks for her." A cracking sound made Elisa jump. Victor stood behind her, silent, staring intently at her. "This book is not for you," he said in a suddenly icy tone, abruptly closing the register. "Who is Elise?" she dared to ask. A mistake from the past, he simply replied before leaving the room. But as soon as he disappeared, Elisa noticed something Victor had tried to hide, in the reflection of a mirror, behind the bookshelves, a concealed door. The young girl approached. She placed her hand on the ancient wood, and felt beneath her fingers the engravings of a strange symbol, resembling a snake biting its own tail. The door was locked. Yet, leaning over, she could make out a faint glimmer through the crack, and the echo of slow, regular, almost inhuman breathing. She took a step back. Then, from a muffled voice coming from behind the door, a whisper made her tremble to the bone. "Help me, before he takes you too." That night, Elisa didn't sleep. The manor seemed to breathe, to emit distant sounds, as if its walls were talking to each other. Every creak, every breath of wind reminded her of the voice she had heard behind the door. Early in the morning, she got up, determined. She had to understand. In the library, the dust hadn't stirred. The book from the day before had disappeared, no doubt hidden by Victor. But the secret door was still there, almost invisible behind the shelves. Elisa observed the symbol of the snake biting its tail. Her fingers trembled, yet she felt a slight indentation in the center of the design. She pressed. A click was heard. The lock gave way. The door opened slowly, releasing a smell of damp and burnt wax. A narrow spiral staircase descended into the gloom. A still warm candle rested on the first step. Someone had been here recently. She went downstairs, one hand against the cold wall. The further she went, the heavier the air became. At the end of the corridor, a large circular room opened up. On the walls, portraits of young women, all different, and yet, all similar to her. In front of each portrait, a marble plaque bore a name and a date. Elise, 1911. Camille, 1938. Clara, 1965. Sophie, 1992. Elisa, empty. The last plaque, the one with his own first name, did not yet have a date. His blood freezes. In the center of the room, a large glass vat, filled with a dark liquid, emitted a reddish light. And next to it, an antique armchair. Victor sat in it, motionless, as if he were waiting for it. "You shouldn't have come here," he said without looking up. "What is all this?" She shouted, "Who are these women?" Victor stood up slowly. His face looked younger than the day before. His wrinkles seemed to have disappeared. "They are my eternity," he murmured. "You see, my dear Elisa, the body ages, but the soul can regenerate, provided it finds the right receptacle." He approached, his eyes shining with an almost supernatural glow. "You are the one I've been waiting for. The one who brings me back to her." "To her?" "Elise. The first one. My wife. You look so much like her." He reached out his hand towards her. The candle flame flickered, and Elisa recoiled in fear. "No, you're crazy." "Mad?" "No, eternal." Then, behind him, a figure slowly formed in the steam. It was the woman in white, the same apparition Elisa had seen the previous night. Her face reflected both pain and anger. "Let her go, Victor. You've already stolen all the others from me." Victor shouted. "Shut up, Elise." The light intensified, the vat trembled. Elisa felt an invisible force pulling her toward the center of the room. She struggled, searching for a way out. On the floor, she saw the key to an old chest. Without thinking, she picked it up and opened the chest. Inside, an old newspaper. The pages recounted the horror. Every woman Victor had loved, or possessed, had been used in a ritual to prolong her life. All had died at 19. And she, Elisa, was next. But the voice of the ghost resounded again, louder this time. "Destroy the circle, before it chains you too." Elisa took a candle and threw it onto the symbols carved into the ground. The fire spread immediately. Victor screamed, trying to extinguish the flames, but his face began to contort and crack. The youth he had stolen for decades was evaporating beneath his cries. "No. Elise. You promised me." The specter of the white woman reached out towards Elisa, a sad smile on her lips. "Run, and live for all of us." Then the entire manor trembled. Elisa rushed up the stairs, breathless, while behind her, flames devoured the walls and the trapped souls. When she reached the exit, dawn was beginning to break. The mansion collapsed with a dull rumble, as if sinking into the earth forever. The Delambre Manor was nothing but a pile of ashes. The flames had died down at dawn, leaving behind only the scent of burnt wood and smoldering secrets. Elisa, covered in soot and with red eyes, stood for a long time gazing at the ruins. She trembled, but deep inside, something had broken, and something else had just been born, a strange peace. The fire engine sirens finally wailed. The authorities found no bodies, neither Victor's nor any trace of other occupants. Officially, the fire was attributed to a short circuit. Elisa, however, remained silent. How could she explain to them that she had seen a man turn to dust before her very eyes? A few weeks later, she received a letter. An old envelope, bearing a seal marked with a snake biting its tail. Inside, a legal document, the will of Victor Delambre. To my dear Elisa. You broke the circle, and that is how I am finally free. This manor, my fortune, and my name now belong to you. But remember, some promises survive beyond death. Sign, Victor Delambre. Elisa felt a shiver run through her. How could he have foreseen this? Was it one last manipulation, or a way of offering her what he had never been able to give, freedom? She initially refused the inheritance, but eventually accepted it. The money was deposited into an account, along with a portion of the land where the manor house once stood. There, she had a small shelter built for young women who were victims of abuse and addiction. She named it La Maison Elise, in memory of the woman who had saved her. But on some nights, when the wind blew hard, Elisa could still hear that murmur, coming from nowhere. Thanks. And sometimes, in the reflection of a window or a mirror, she would see a figure dressed in white, who smiled gently at her before disappearing. A year later, a notary contacted her again. While sorting through old documents, he had discovered a notebook in the name of Victor Delambre, dated 1910. On the last page, there was a single sentence, written in a trembling hand. If she ever returns with a different face, I will finally know how to repair what I have broken. Elisa closed the notebook, her heart heavy. Perhaps Victor had never meant to kill her. Perhaps he simply wanted to find her again, again and again, to atone for a sin too old to be forgiven. She looked up at the sky. The wind caressed her face like a promise. This time, she was free. And the circle, finally, was broken.